talking here about Glenn Greenwald and Liz Cheney. So Liz Cheney recently has received support from a number of Democrats. Not exaggerating, a number of Democrats. One of them including Robert Reich. I know you guys have some cringe takes on him. He has some good views when it comes to labor, but all in all, Rob's a Dem. And he wants you to vote for Joe Biden. I talked about him before recently about how he still thinks this is who we need to vote for. He actually said in a recent article that he would like to see someone like Liz Cheney run for president for 2024 to get the Republican Party back on its good graces. That actually came from Robert Reich. Don't be surprised. It's true. What is funny to me is how many Democrats are coming forward in favor of Liz Cheney just because she went against the Trumpers in reference to last year's event in January. I have to be careful how I say that on here. I think we still need to remember who Liz Cheney is and who Liz Cheney was. And Glenn Greenwald has done so. Apparently, he did not forget who Liz Cheney is. Let's take a look at this. Glenn Greenwald said the Democratic Party oligarchical mega donors, led by Hollywood's Jeffrey Katzenberg, also one of the largest investors in the Young Turks, line up to pour money into Liz Cheney's reelection campaign, along with small Democratic Party donors as well. Now, this is something that I've talked about often on this show. I've told you and I've shown you how Republicans and Democrats have the same donors. They share donors sometimes, which means that they have shared interest. Now we see that Jeffrey Katzenberg, the same gentleman that gave that $20 million to TYT, is also donating to Liz Cheney. Now, I haven't seen TYT talk about this. I also don't watch TYT, but I haven't seen them talk about this. If they have, please let me know. But this goes back to what I've said before about the money. This is why you need to follow the money. Now, Jeffrey Katzenberg, last time I checked, he was supposed to be a liberal. And here he is donating money to Liz Cheney and donating money to TYT. So what is the narrative that is going to come out of TYT going forward? Now, I know they are not for Liz Cheney. Is that going to remain the same? Are they going to change their tune about their opinion about Liz Cheney? Let's take a look and see just how well Liz Cheney is or is not doing. She has pissed off Republican voters. She has pissed off the Republican Party. The Democratic Party seems to want to embrace her with open arms. I think people forget who she is, but I do want to show you where she stands now, and then I'm going to remind you of her past. So here we go. This is from the New York Times. Liz Cheney's latest fans, Democratic donors. Despite policy disagreements, donors like Jeffrey Katzenberg are backing the Wyoming Republican because of her role on the House committee investigating last January. Apparently, that was all it took. So let's get into this. As one of the nation's biggest Democratic donors, the film producer Jeffrey Katzenberg helped make Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton into Hollywood darlings. But this year, he is backing a surprise candidate, Representative Liz Cheney, the staunchly conservative Wyoming Republican. We agree on little, if anything. But she has done something that very, very few people in history have done, which is she's put her country over party and politics to stand in defense of our Constitution. He's referring to Ms. Cheney's leadership role on the House committee investigating last January to help Ms. Cheney bolster her chances in Wyoming's upcoming Republican primary. She is facing a Trump-backed opponent. Mr. Katzenberg and his wife have donated more than $43,000 to her campaign and groups supporting her. And this is why we argue that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are both right. The Democratic Party is not left. It is still right. Center right at best. Because when you have someone like Jeffrey Katzenberg, who donated to Hillary Clinton and Obama, who pumped them up, now being willing to do the same thing for Republican Liz Cheney, there really isn't that much of a difference but the social issues. And this is what I've told you guys before. This is how they keep us divided. They'll pinpoint little social issues, and not saying necessarily little, but they use those issues to keep us divided between left and right so that we don't focus on where the money's going and the class divide that we have in this country. Because had it not been for Glenn Greenwald, I'm not sure I would have seen this article. So he shared this and pointed this out. I know people have difference of opinion of Glenn Greenwald. I don't agree with him on everything, but he's right to point this out. The fact that here's money changing multiple hands here. Here's money going to different parties from the same person. And he's not the only one. Exxon does it. Apple Inc. does it. Blue Cross Blue Shield does it. They donate to Republicans and they donate to Democrats. You can see this on Open Secrets yourself. We really have one corporate party. Same thing with Roe v. Wade. Dems could have codified this into law decades ago. Chose not to. Why? There's no corporate interest in that. There's corporate interest in people having babies. That helps labor. Labor helps capital. There's no corporate interest in you choosing to abort a baby. That does not help labor, and that does not help capital. That's what I want people to understand. Let's go on more about the contributions here. Oop, I made that bigger than I needed to. Mr. Katzenberg said his contributions went beyond that sum, but declined to provide further details. I wonder why. Saying only that he was talking up Miss Cheney, the vice chairman of the January committee. Anybody and everybody that will listen to me with any party affiliation. You see, when it's time to exchange money, it's okay for them to have bipartisanship. It's okay for them to say any party affiliation, anyone that will listen to me. But when we choose to protest, when we choose to work together over the class issue, we're smeared. Mr. Katzenberg is one of a number of Democrats and independents who are crossing ideological lines to support Ms. Cheney, who has become a pariah in her own party for her break with Mr. Trump. A supporter of Mr. Trump for almost an entirety of his term, Ms. Cheney, who opposes abortion, supports conservative judges, and wants to expand mining and energy drilling, even in environmentally safe areas, voted in line with him 93% of the time. Now, that's according to 538. So, why are these liberals who say they care so much about codifying Roe v. Wade, who say they care so much about climate change, why are they giving money and why are they supporting someone who does not? Someone let me know. Because the fact that you would back her over that one issue because she chose not to back the Trump crew or whatever, I call bullshit. Some of these same donors, some of these same liberals like Robert Reich, who says he cares about the climate, women should have a right to choose. Why is Robert Reich writing articles telling people that he wants Liz Cheney to run for president? It's terrible. We'll go on. Most Democratic donors are profoundly out of step with Ms. Cheney on those issues and others, but the Democrats supporting her say they have been impressed by her courage in opposing the former president. Cheney is the most important politician in America right now. That came from Dimitri Melhorn, a political strategist who advises LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman. Remember, I told you some things about Reid Hoffman. Isn't he something? Reid Hoffman, by the way, is now, this is someone that used to back those progressive candidates. He's now donating money to corporate Democrats and also conservatives, FYI. The point that I want to make here is that all of the people at the top, these billionaires, these millionaires, they protect each other. They look out for the politicians that are going to serve their best interests in the end. And that is what is happening right now with someone like Liz Cheney. But I want to remind you who Liz Cheney was, because I'm not going to let this slide. Let's talk about, see if we remember. I want to remind you Liz Cheney's opinions about the LGBTQ community. For those who are not aware, Liz Cheney's sister is LGBTQ. She opposed gay rights. Liz Cheney actively opposed it, even though she had a family member who was LGBTQ. Now, apparently, September last year, she tried to change her position on that. But I don't think people from the LGBTQ community are buying it so much. Listen to this article here from MSNBC. LGBTQ community has reason to doubt Liz Cheney's new support for gay rights. Oh, yes, they do. Cheney voted against gay rights legislation 7 months ago. So there you have that. Here we go. Let's not make Liz Cheney the Grand Marshal of Pride 2020 just yet. This is what she said in an interview with Leslie Stahl. This is with 60 Minutes. I was wrong. I was wrong. Cheney, daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney, said in the interview with Leslie Stahl, who noted she was not expecting such a confession. Referring to her sister Mary, who is openly gay, Cheney said, "I love my sister very much. I love my family very much. And I was wrong. It's a very personal issue and very personal for my family. I believe that my dad was right, and my sister and I have had that conversation." The Wyoming Congresswoman went further by saying correctly that transgender people are a group that we as a nation need to protect. We do, especially now as they continue to face devastating attacks across this nation, both physically and legislatively. But let's not make Cheney the Grand Marshal of Pride 2022 just yet. Let's instead raise our eyebrows at what she's saying. Now, this was just last year. In February, the House, in a 2024 to 206 vote, passed the Equality Act, a measure that would provide the strongest level of protections for LGBTQ folks in America, sending the bill over to a Senate where there's not enough support to pass it. 3 Republicans in the House voted in favor of the Equality Act. Cheney was not one of them. So that happened in February of last year. And all of a sudden, in this interview with 60 Minutes in September of last year, all of a sudden she has a change of heart. But she didn't have that change of heart when it came to legislation. Didn't have that change of heart when it came to vote. So you have to ask yourself, what's her plan here? Let's go back in. Her claim to Stahl was that she's now a supporter of gay rights at such a newsworthy moment because she has infamously held tight to her anti-LGBTQ views since 2013, when she unsuccessfully challenged incumbent Senator Mike Enzi of Wyoming for his seat, but found lots of success by sticking to her talking points opposing same-sex marriage. Her sister had married her partner the previous year. She reaffirmed her opposition to same-sex marriage in 2016, a year after the Supreme Court had made such marriages legal across the country. While it is good to hear her finally admit being wrong about something her father told her she was wrong about a decade ago, this sounds less like a change of heart and more like Cheney being aware of changing politics. Here's a fun fact you probably didn't know. Republicans actually like same-sex marriage now, and we have the data to prove it. According to the data from a 2021 Gallup poll, not only do most Republicans continue to largely support same-sex marriage, but also for the first time, a majority of Republicans finally do too. Oh, excuse me. Not only do most Americans continue to support same-sex marriage, for the first time, a majority of Republicans do too. Acceptance of same-sex marriage has reached a record high of 70% nationally, and among Republicans, support for same-sex marriage was at 55%. Any Republicans in the chat? Y'all want to comment? So that's interesting. Maybe she's having to change her heart so she can get reelected. Maybe that's what that's really about. But I find it hard to believe that she just had this change of heart out of nowhere. I find that hard to believe. There's one more piece I want to point out here. The cultural shift showing Republican support for gay marriage actually has nothing to do with Republicans actually caring about LGBTQ people having full and equal rights. Instead, it's proof of something we've known for a long time. Same-sex marriage is a conservative issue at its core, but one, some conservatives have chosen not to accept it until now. And this article goes on and on. It's a pretty lengthy article here. I'm not going to get into all of that there, but that's something I want you to take in. The fact that Liz Cheney, you know, she said she loved her sister, but she was willing to go against her sister when it came to gay marriage, and her sister was LGBTQ. And the reason why she did that is because she believed politically that was the best strategy. But she said she loved her sister. So you were willing to sell out your sister right to get married to someone of the same sex just so you can get elected? This is all a game. It really is disgusting to me that Democrats are really like they're really pushing Liz Cheney. Not only was she anti-LGBTQ, but she was also a warmonger. I want to remind you of that as well, along with her dad. I guess it ran in the family with that one. So I think we need to stop doing this. I'm glad that Glenn Greenwald called out the donors, so you can see that even someone like Jeffrey Katzenberg, I really wonder, what does Anna and Jink have to say about this? How does Anna and Jink feel knowing that as much as they criticize Republicans, that their own donor is donating to Republican? Because I looked up the most recent video from them about Liz Cheney. There's nothing mentioned in that video about Jeffrey Katzenberg donating money to Liz Cheney. So that's that. I'm going to go to some of the comments. Lewis said Liz Cheney, top contributor 2021 through 2022, Blackstone Group, $34,800. Here you go. What's that? Yipper99 says, ask them. Sabby, ask them. Oh, I want to know. How do they feel about that? Frank says, how many Democrats have come forward for Liz because they are conservatives? Democrats are conservatives and corporatists. Well said, Frank. JB, watch. Liz Cheney is going to move to the Democratic Party. And don't be surprised if Joe Manchin moves to the Republican Party. Don't be surprised. Thank you for the super chat, AJF. The biggest threat to the elites is a modern mutual aid-based, honest, peaceful, left-right web cross platform. The American people needs a class-based left-right alliance. Wise up, folks. Bam. I agree 100%. That's what we need. Kat Terrell said it's called rainbow washing. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.